What up, YouTube? Team Movies here with the new Perry Mason show, which I still have not really seen yet. I'm gonna probably check it out. I've been busy with security work this week, so I have not had time to really watch the new Perry Mason. I'm gonna try to check it out this week though, because it actually looks intriguing. Anywho, since the show is a series that takes place in the 1930s, I decided to go ahead and do my top 10 favorite movies of the 30s. Now, yeah, these movies are way ahead of my time, but I have seen. I'm a 28-year-old that have seen original classics. I've seen movies from the 30s and 40s and up. Okay, uh, I'm one of the rare younger folks who have actually seen the classics. Okay. Anyway, and the 30s had some really awesome films of that time period. You know, not many of them probably holds up today, but there's some pretty solid ones. So, with that being said, here are my 10 favorite movies of the 1930s. Alright, uh, coming in number 10, I'm gonna go with this very weird movie, Tired Freaks. Freaks, you could tell that American Horror Story Freak, that show American Horror Story Freak Show, you could tell the show, you could tell that, the movie Freaks kind of inspired American Horror Story Freak Show. Okay, Freaks is like one of the weirdest movies of the 30s. It got released in 1931 or 32, I believe. And for you guys who don't know, for what you guys don't know what Freaks is, it's where like this trapeze artist named Cleopatra, played by Olga Balakanova, learns that this circus little guy Hans, played by Harry Earls, has an inheritance, and she ends up marrying him, and while also planning to steal his fortune and run off with her lover, who's a shoreman named Hercules, played by Henry Victor. But when Hans' friend and fellow performers discover what is going on, they band together and carry out a brutal revenge that leaves Hercules and Cleopatra knowing what it truly means to, become, a freak. I mean, this is a film that not many people have really even seen, but it was very controversial when it got released. It's one of the weirdest movies of the 30s. I mean, yeah, it was one of the, it's a very controversial flick. I don't know if this movie would probably get made today. It probably is not even a film that even holds up today. But Cleopatra and Hercules really got what came to them. I mean, those two were really not right. But that aside, it's on that side, the film was actually pretty solid. If you guys never really seen the movie Freaks, go check it out. It's a really weird film, but it's actually worth giving a watch. All right, number 9, I'm gonna go with Frank Capra's film Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. Now, this of course stars James Stewart as a young idealist, Jefferson Smith, who ends up winding up as appointed to the U.S. Senate, and he ends up getting the mentorship of Senator Joseph Payne, played by Claude Rains. But Payne isn't very notable at his reputation, and would indicate, and he becomes very involved in a scheme. So it's a very interesting political-based comedy. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. I mean, Jesus. Sorry about the noise, guys. Anywho, James Stewart at the height of his career. Of course, he started in, it's a Wonderful Life. Of course, also directed by Frank Capra. He, I believe I got another Frank Capra film on this list. I'll get to that here in a minute. But Mr. Smith Goes to Washington is really hilarious, really nice, political-based film. This is definitely probably a political comedy. I don't know if it will really hold up in today's standards, but it's a pretty decent one. I believe it got a couple of Oscar love, if I'm not mistaken. I think James Stewart got a nomination. He got Best Picture. I could be wrong there. I gotta check that. But anyway. Alright, coming in at number 8, I'm gonna go with It Happened One Night. Now, this is another Frank Capra directed film, and you got Spoil Harris, played by Ellie Andrews, who marries the scheming King Wesley, and so leading her typhoon father, played by Walter Connolly, to spirit her way on his yacht. So after jumping, ship, she ends up falling for this news reporter named Pierre Warren, played by Clark Gable, who offers her to help her reunite with her new husband. But he ends up, falling for her as well. This has some really cool moments. Like, I quite like the scene where, Clark Gable's character and her are trying to wait for are trying to get a car, and she teaches them, her way to, to be able to get a ride. I thought, like, Clark Gable, of course, I got another Clark Gable movie on this list, which might get controversial, but I'll talk about that here in a bit. But Claudette, alright. Anywho, Claudette and Clark both had some. Anyway, they both had some really solid chemistry together. It was nice. It is a really iconic romantic comedy. It got nominated. I believe it got a couple of Oscar love as well. Some of these movies got nominated for Oscars, but that aside, It Happened One Night is the poster is really. It also has a really cool poster. If you guys never really seen It Happened One Night, it's a really good rom-com. Number 7, I'm going to go with Bride of Frankenstein. Now, of course, this is, the Frankenstein film starring Colin Clive as Dr. Frankenstein, who ends up, of course, the monster played by Boris Karloff ends up having a idealistic bride in this. The one to play the bride is pretty decent. Of course, this ended up being a bit of a flop to the original Frankenstein, which I'm going to talk about here in a bit. But, yeah, I mean, Bride of Frankenstein is a really solid one. It has some, really cool cast members. It's really cool and should watch in black and white. Of course, this is also the film that really, lots of films ended up being influenced by Bride of Frankenstein. Of course, Bride of Chucky ended up being influenced by Bride of Frankenstein. Loads of other films was influenced by it. Bride of Frankenstein it's an iconic one. If you guys haven't really seen Bride of Frankenstein, there's already talks about a new remake of Bride of Frankenstein in the works down the line. But definitely go check out the original Bride of Frankenstein. It's a really good one. The 30s has some pretty good horror films. I mean, James Whale, boy, he had his hand work out from. Because number 6, we got the original Frankenstein. Of course, it got released in 1931, 31 or 32, one of the two. The original Boris Karloff, he was iconic as the monster. Of course, you had Colin Clive as the role of Dr. Henry Frankenstein, Dwight Fry as his assistant, Fritz. Frankenstein, of course, ends up, wreaking havoc. Frankenstein, the monster is one of the most iconic, of course, based on a book by Mary Shelley. Frankenstein is just iconic. One of the most iconic movie monsters there is. Every time you see around Halloween, there will be people dressed up as Frankenstein. Frankenstein's just. I always love the Frankenstein character. It's just so really, and Boris Karloff is so iconic as a role. Of course, he ended up reprising the role in Bride of Frankenstein, and I believe he reprised the role in a few other Frankenstein films down the line. But yeah, in the 30s and 40s had some really iconic horror movie monsters that got released, and Frankenstein is definitely one of them. But there's another iconic horror movie monster that got released in the 30s. Number 5, I'm going to go with another iconic horror movie of that era. And that goes to Dracula. I mean, come on, Dracula starring Bela Lugosi as Count Dracula. I mean, what not to love about the original Dracula? The original Dracula is just iconic, Bela Lugosi, there's been so many actors who have took on the role of Dracula over the years. But the iconic one has got to be Bela Lugosi. He played the role. He was so fierce. He was creepy as the role Dracula. I mean, hold on. All right. Let me just say this right now. I probably already mentioned this before. But Bela Lugosi was so invested in his Dracula role. Like, fun fact, when Bela Lugosi tragically passed away, you can actually find the photo online, believe it or not. But when Bela Lugosi was actually buried, he was actually buried in his Dracula costume. So shows you how. I mean, it'll be like if I'm not trying to say this as a messed up way, but it'll be like if, let's say, Robert Downey Jr. Passes away. He'll be asked to probably get buried in his Iron Man uniform. That shows how much of a how invested of a character, how invested you are at playing an iconic character like Dracula. And yeah, if you guys never really seen Bela Lugosi's Dracula yet, it's a horror film that really redefined the vampire genre. Of course, since then we had loads of other Dracula adaptations. And the original Dracula is just iconic. Definitely, yeah, I mean, Bram Stoker is one of the coolest, Dracula stories there is. Alright, number 4, I'm gonna go with the original King Kong. Come on, the Empire State Building scene of the girl. I mean, what not to love about the original King Kong? Starring Fay Ray. Granted, the effects probably don't hold up as, like, of course this was 1930s. Obviously, the effects, it's not like King Kong with, Peter Jackson's King Kong or Kong Skull Island or even Godzilla versus Kong. The effects was a little outdated back in the days because it's the 30s. What do you expect? But man, King Kong, I was thought King Kong still looked pretty decent. I like the, of course the like weird love story thing was a little odd. I always found like the love story thing a bit odd, but that aside, the original King Kong still holds up. Since then, of course, we had loads of other King Kong films that got released. There's one of Jeff Bridges, the Peter Jackson one. Like I said, of course, we got Godzilla vs. Kong coming next year. So, yeah, King Kong is just one of the most iconic movie giant monsters there is. And the Empire, every time I look at the Empire State, I live in New York City, and obviously every time I look at the Empire State Building, I always picture, wow, King Kong really, climbed that thing. That's pretty cool right there. But anywho, all right. Coming in at number 3, I'm gonna go with the Disney's first ever animated film, and that is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. You know what? This was actually the first thing that Walt Disney has ever created, and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is just one of the most iconic Disney movies. Hold on. No, I was talking about. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is just one of the most iconic Disney animated movies there is. Yeah, I mean, it is of course based on a classic storybook. It's of course, there was a wicked witch in this, an evil queen, the Seven Dwarfs, some really iconic songs. I mean, hi ho, da, 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 da. Who not remember that song? Of course, Snow White ended up getting poisoned by a poison apple. That was messed up by there's a couple of witches. I mean, the original Snow White is just so iconic. I mean, Catherine. I mean, crazy to believe that Catherine Beaumont, was the voice of both Snow White and Alice in Alice in Wonderland. So, pretty cool, right? What a cool career she had. Anyway, if you guys never really seen the original Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, it got released 1938. It's one of the most iconic Disney movies there is. I mean, Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. Really cool there. Okay, number 2 has been in the news a lot lately for not good reasons. My number 2 pick, I'm going to go with Gone with the Wind. Now, like I said, Gone with the Wind has been a film that's... Anyway, Gone with the Wind has lately, if you guys don't know, HBO Max, because the racial tensions that's been going on in the world and all that. Gone with the Wind has, of course, been removed from HBO Max. It is set to come back, but yeah, and of course, Gone with the Wind was a film that made Oscar history because Harry McDaniel ended up becoming the first African American to win an Oscar. So this is a film that actually made Oscar history. And of course, Gone with the Wind won Best Picture. It is iconic. It is of course stars Vivian Lee as a Scarlet Hair. You've got Leslie Howard, Clark Gable as Rhett Butler. Directed by Victor Fleming, who had two movies out that year, and I'm gonna get you my number one. And his other film is my number one favorite of that year, and it's my number one favorite film of all time. I'll get you that here in a minute. But Gone with the Wind is just so iconic in every way. I mean, it's amazing. If you guys never really seen the original Gone with the Wind, it might not hold up. I don't know if it'll hold up as much today, but it's really good. A very long film. I believe it's about 3 hours long, or 3 hours or 4 hours long. Very long film, but if you guys have not seen it, I'll say give it a shot. It's a really good one. Alright. My number one favorite movie of the 1930s is not only my favorite movie of that decade, it's my favorite movie of all time. My number one favorite movie of the 1930s obviously goes to the film that made me love movies, and that is The Wizard of Oz. I mean, there's no getting around it. The Wizard of Oz is the best movie of that decade. You know, director Victor Fleming literally had no. I believe I'm trying to remember. I believe he's. I believe it was one of the very few. Sorry. It was one of the very few times where a director literally had not one but two movies nominated for Best Picture. I don't think I cannot ever recall that time ever happening again. But that aside, The Wizard of Oz, starring Judy Garland as Dorothy, based on a book by L. Frank Baum. Another film on this list that features a Wicked Witch. You've got Margaret Hamilton as the Wicked Witch of the West. Some iconic, music numbers in this. The Munchkins are always really cool. You got the Cowardly Lion played by Burt Law. You've got, you got Ray Bogart as the Scarecrow. You got Jack Haley as the Tin Man. You've got Frank Morgan playing, the Wizard, and loads of other folks. Who does not love The Wizard of Oz? This is a very timeless movie. It's been it's been about 80 years since the film got released. It's a film that just never gets old. It's one of the best movies ever. Of course, last year I did do my top 10 favorite movies of all time, and The Wizard of Oz obviously is number one. It's one of the very first VHS tapes I ever owned. It's just one of the really the movie that really got me into movies. I mean, I always found it to be very cool of how they went from black and white to color, then black and white. I mean, it was one of the rare films that has actually ever done that. And yeah, The Wizard of Oz is it's timeless. I mean, even like people today, if you just mention the word Wizard of Oz, people will know what you're talking about. It's a movie that just never gets old. It never gets outdated. You could just the movie is shown on TV constantly. You could just watch pop in it if you own it. They premiere on TBS. They premiere on TNT, TCM. It's just never gets old, and yeah, that's why The Wizard of Oz is just one of the best. All right, that's pretty much it. Let me do the quick rundown. 10. All right, 10 Freaks. 9. Mrs. Smith Goes to Washington. 8. It Happened One Night. 7. Bride of Frankenstein. 6. Frankenstein. 5. Dracula. 4. King Kong. 3. Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. 2. Gone with the Wind. And number 1, The Wizard of Oz. Now, there's been loads of other. Now, the 1930s had some other really iconic movies of that era. Let me pull up the. Alright. 1930 movies. Alright. Come on. Alright, All the Quiet Western Front, that's a good one. Let's see. Doughboys. Uh, Lots of Lauren Hardy movies I could have added. Let's see. Anna Christie with Greg Garbo. That's a good one. Animal Crackers. Lauren Hardy was pretty big back in the days. The Marx Brothers. They've got. There was an Abraham Lincoln movie that got released in the 30s. There was Montana Moon with Joan Crawford. That's a decent one. Soup Nuts. Lots of really solid ones of that decade. Anyway, let me lead you guys. What are some of your favorite movies of the 1930s? Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell for more notifications. This is Movie signing off.